Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time here on this Monday night, October the 21st. We are happy to have you here for another episode of the show. We have Brian Callahan at the podium earlier today, doubling down on his commitment to quarterback Will Levis whenever it is that Will Levis returns from this sprained AC joint that he is currently dealing with. We are going to ask you whether you believe there should be more of a quarterback controversy here in Tennessee while Levis continues to be on the mend, and what you make of Brian Callahan in this particular situation. We will also talk about some wide receiver moves, most recently today, that may impact the trade market for one DeAndre Hopkins, who is currently sitting on the Titans roster and deserves much better than a 1-5 football team, even though you love him, I'm sure. I thoroughly enjoy Hop. I would be sad if he got traded because there's precious few interesting people to talk to in that locker room these days. But you understand the need to regain draft capital because not only did you give up picks for L'Jarius Sneed this offseason, but you also gave up picks for Ernest Jones, which is something that's going to come into play further down the line as this team looks to basically the NFL draft with 11 weeks more of this season to play. Bert will join us for In Case You Missed It, and then we'll get him out of here because he is champing at the bit to watch his Baltimore Ravens and Derrick Henry, an MVP candidate, go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road. Tonight we got a Monday Night Football doubleheader between the Chargers and the Cardinals, the Ravens and the Bucs. So we'll see if we can't get you out in time for kickoff of both of those games. Before we get started, need you guys to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, wherever you decide to spend your time with us. Many of you are asking where you can get the Sad Boy Radio hats because shout out to Sarah Jameson, who runs the company Rowdy Lou, the apparel company Rowdy Lou here in town. I texted her yesterday in the fourth quarter of the Titans-Bills game, and I said, how much would it cost me? I'll pay whatever it costs for you to turn around a Sad Boy Radio hat before I go on the air at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and she did it. Now, this is a prototype, but we kind of like the design of this, even though she just whipped it up real fast in her studio. I think we're going to come out with some Sad Boy Radio merch because God knows this is not trending in any other direction but more Sad Boy football talk. And so we will update you on how you can get involved with those. We're going to see if we can't attach the sales of this because I don't want to make money off your football team's pain and suffering. I don't want to make money off your pain and suffering, but what I will do is make money for charity off your football team's pain and suffering. So I'm going to work to see what charitable cause we can donate the proceeds of the Sad Boy Radio hats to, and then we will let you guys know how you can also be the proud owner of some Sad Boy Radio apparel at this point, because goodness knows the sadness is going to continue in the meantime. So let me get some charitable. Let me get a charitable component to this, and then I'll start making these Sad Boy Radio hats available for you. We're going to work on a couple of different designs as well. We had some good ones. Halo says, "Can you do blue?" Yeah, we could. I mean, definitely we can do blue. God knows we could do two-tone blue because Sad Boy. There is nothing more Sad Boy right now than two-tone blue. We will get into all of these things later. But first, I need you to share the broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, wherever you are spending your time with us. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Bert says we need beanies for the Sad Boy Radio hats as well. Perhaps we have all manner of different options at our disposal that I will work with the great folks at Rowdy Lou to see if we can't come up with some options for you. But I first need you guys to share the broadcast around Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Twitter, retweet it. Facebook, you can share now to public in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You can also like the video and subscribe to the channel on YouTube and on Twitch if you haven't done so already. I think that there are going to be some interesting comments tonight about this quarterback situation because I don't know what I expected Brian Callahan to do when asked about the quarterback today, but there is some level of controversy to be had about a team whose quarterback play is bad regardless of what they do. And again, we will work through these things together. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the wonderful people at Two Rivers Ford, quality American-made Ford vehicles award-winning customer service. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. By TrueMath Fitness, your first workout is free at truemathfitness.com. No workout ever recycled or repeated, just the best workout in Middle Tennessee. And Zen Sports, where you can still get your bets in on Monday Night Football with about 20 minutes to go before kick. Promo code ATOZTN gets you in on all the action in the Zen Sports app. So Will Levis doesn't play yesterday, and we walked through the details of why that was when I was still in Buffalo at Highmark Stadium last night. He is somebody in Will Levis who had the sprained AC joint in Miami on his throwing shoulder, got the bye week, exited that game dealing with the injury. Mason Rudolph came in, won the game. So Will Levis goes out 3 of 4 for 25 yards and a pick in the halfway through the first quarter, and we don't see him again until he is going to be available to start and play against the Indianapolis Colts. Then we see how the Colts game goes. We see how inoperable he was as a player, whether you want to let him use the shoulder as an excuse or not. Brian Callahan said, late in that game when he started to make more throws, he was having issues. On Thursday in practice, when we made him a full participant, we had him try all the different throws that he would possibly try in a game. It did not go well. We made him a limited participant on Friday and then ultimately made the decision to go to Mason Rudolph on Saturday, which again is when Mason Rudolph found out that he was going to get the start. And that's when we found out. We heard that his parents were driving up for the game to watch Mason Rudolph start, and the wheels on the bus go round and round, and the quarterback evaluation in Tennessee becomes that much more difficult because the quarterback that you're supposed to be evaluating now is unavailable to play. So I think that there's a couple of different things that you can look at here with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, because Mason Rudolph didn't light it up yesterday, but did Mason Rudolph perform better than Will Levis has? Yes, I will say, because he did throw a pick and he did lose a fumble, but the protection in this game was poor, especially in the second half. Buffalo just started to tee off on them when they got in obvious drop back situations. This is a team that can't win for losing at this point, because they did manage things efficiently and effectively in the first half, but they did go through it a bit scared, right? It felt a bit flimsy the entire time they had that 10-7 lead, but that's what it is. They had a lead and they blew it. So with everything that you've got right now, the question that I'm going to ask you, your Two Rivers Ford take, is this: do the Titans have a quarterback controversy? And if you are somebody who does not believe that they have a quarterback controversy, I'd be curious to know what your explanation is as to why you don't think there should be some controversy on whether or which quarterback ends up starting the bulk of the games that remain, because there's still 11 damn weeks of this NFL season to go. Most people are having fun, even though you're not. And you understand that now this becomes a very, very serious proposition, because being the fourth worst team in the NFL does not guarantee you the best quarterback situation. And right now they are the fourth worst team in the NFL. We'll see how things change or not change for the Browns, the Raiders, the Panthers, and the who's another team that has only one win at this point in the season? I'm forgetting somebody. Browns, Panthers. Oh, the Patriots. The Patriots are also currently worse than you, because they have both the Browns and the Patriots have one more loss because they have played one more game. So technically they are worse teams in terms of the draft order for you. So you have to evaluate quarterbacks this season. You have to consider your options next season, because it may be the draft, but it may not. You may not have the best possible solution in the draft. You may have to sign a 1-year, 2-year quarterback deal for somebody to try and Sam Darnold your way through a season, so that the coaching staff can prove that they are the right people equipped to be able to handle the turnaround on this thing, even though at 1-5, the coaching staff looks like they're drowning a little bit. So, fair or foul? Is there a quarterback controversy in Tennessee? It's your Two Rivers Ford take. As always, it's presented by Two Rivers Ford. Ford Truck Central is Two Rivers Ford. Whether you are looking for a new Ford truck for you or for your business, Two Rivers Ford always has great options available. They have one of the Southeast's largest selection of Ford trucks. They also have great rates and great financing on whichever Ford truck you would choose to test drive, take home, or custom order for yourself. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. So what is the fair or foul? Is there a quarterback controversy in Tennessee. Benjamin Buck says, suck for Sanders. Man, if I'm Deion, I'm looking at the Tennessee Titans and be like, ain't no way I'm sending Shador to Tennessee. I would Eli Manning my way out of that situation if I was Shador. Right now, the Draft Network has you taking Jalen Milroe, which I know makes Vols fans itchy again after they are projected to draft another SEC quarterback that they've had success against. Richie says neither quarterback will start 2025. That's not the point, Richie. You've got 11 more games of 2024. I don't give a shit about 2025 yet, even though 2025 is the only thing that you have to look forward to at this point to get out of the hellscape that has been this season. You have 11 more games in 2024 that you have to figure out which quarterback situation makes the most sense. Jay says foul. Levis is the only solution at quarterback. And of course, I disagree, because if Levis doesn't give you the best, it doesn't matter which one of them it is. Whichever quarterback gives the locker room the most faith that they can go out there and legitimately compete and try and win a football game, then that is the quarterback that the coaching staff must select. That is where these things are at right now. Benjamin says because Rudolph also can't elevate the team. JQ says foul, no quarterback controversy here in Tennessee. William Jones says both are ass juice. It's bad, right? But Mason did some things in that first half, and Mason has done some things in his 2 appearances that Levis has not been able to do. Nico, top troop, talking about the Vols. Nico missing and overthrowing. It's nothing but timing. Give them a game or 2 and he'll be right. The defense got his back, just saying. Yeah, well, even in the first half of that game, in the first half of that Vols game, I was getting a lot of Levis-Nico comparisons on what that looked like, even down to some of the turnovers that were being made. Allison on YouTube says, we tried Will and Mason. How is Trevor? Trevor Simeon is who you would like to give some starts to. Allison, and I understand why, but it's like the right tackle situation. Just trying different players doesn't necessarily guarantee success. Now, here's the situation that Titans fans are caught in. For the fan base and for the organization, it is not beneficial to win more games this year. What is beneficial is securing the best possible draft pick for this team to try and reset the board, specifically at the quarterback position. Now, that is not how the players and coaches can go about their business. The player and coaches must try and go out there and continue to win football games. If they lose organically, then that's one thing. But tanking is not on the table if you are somebody who takes a paycheck as an NFL player, as an NFL coach. And if that is on the table for you, then those people should be immediately run out of your organization, because that's horseshit. You do not want to actively promote the idea of losing football games in an organization. That kind of rot sets in and has serious repercussions and a serious ripple effect down the road, especially when some of these players that you have are not going anywhere, like Calvin Ridley, L'Jarius Sneed, Lloyd Cushenberry, Kenneth Murray, all these different players that you added to this football team this offseason that are on long-term deals. So you cannot promote the idea of losing from within. You, as an organization, have to try and balance, okay, it is best to lose, but we have to still find out how to win. Jay says, what if Levis succeeds by the end of the year? The decision on Levis has been made. Like the Levis proposition is not viable anymore. The best solution at the end of the year for Will Levis is to try and move him. If Will Levis succeeds by the end of the year, then you try and sell him for a higher draft pick than you might otherwise have had. But the Levis experiment is all but over, even though he's only appeared in 6 games this season. The coaching staff is telling you what you think about Will Levis, and it's either Will Levis or the coaching staff, and I just can't imagine a scenario where Will Levis is chosen over this coaching staff that was just put in to try and fix him. So, no, if Levis succeeds, excellent. Then you find somebody else to take him for a higher draft pick than maybe a 7th or a 6th that you might be able to move him for at this point in time, given that he is dealing with an injury, and people are going to take that into consideration when you offer Will Levis up to whichever team might try and take a chance on rehabbing and rebuilding him. With everything that's being said right now, the question becomes, fair or foul, do the Titans have a quarterback controversy this year? Well, according to Brian Callahan, there is no deviation from the plan. At least heading into week 8, they are 100% doubling down still on the Will Levis experience.
Everything about what we were hoping to get out of the season was a really solid and concrete evaluation of Will as a starting quarterback. The injury process, we haven't played well enough anywhere around him. He certainly hasn't played up to what I think he's capable of playing. And so we're not in a great spot record-wise. And the injury doesn't help. And hopefully that the minute he's back healthy, the intent is for him to continue to play. And hopefully that's sooner rather than later, because I'd like to continue to have him playing football. But I'm not going to let him go out there if he's not where he needs to be to go perform. And so, again, hopefully in maybe this week, maybe next week, but sooner than later, he'll be back playing.
So that is Brian Callahan today at the podium, continuing to discuss their commitment to Will Levis whenever he is available from injury. So, fair. There is no quarterback controversy in Tennessee because their decision seems to be, for now, to continue to ride things out with Levis. But again, I say, if the players check out on the coaching staff because they put Will Levis out there, and the players at some point identify that Levis does not give them a better chance to succeed than Mason Rudolph, then you have to weigh the risk reward of one versus 52 other players. Now, not all 52 are still going to be here in 2025, but a good portion of them are still going to be here in 2025. And if you are a young player or a veteran player who's looking at a coach making a decision on a quarterback just to ride things out no matter what, even if it doesn't give the rest of them the best chance to succeed, then you run the risk of losing the rest of the 52 as opposed to the one who probably is not going to be here beyond 2025. So I think that there is logic in continuing to see Levis at some point, but at this point, for me, the evaluation is done. The coaching staff seems to have made their determination on Will Levis because they can't figure him out. And I would fully expect them to move on from Will Levis, regardless of if he makes not substantial improvements, but makes incremental improvements so far this year. The biggest indictment of the coaching staff is that it doesn't matter who plays quarterback in this system. They struggle. They don't score points in the second half. They don't have any rhythm or timing to the passing game. They look like they're underwater a little bit and trying to figure out things in real time. There are some definite growing pains with Brian Callahan and his crew at this point. Doesn't mean that they're going to be bad at coaching forever. Doesn't mean that they're going to even be bad next week. Doesn't, it's like Levis. They can make incremental improvements as well and change your tone or your tune about where this coaching staff is trending right now. But right now, the coaching staff is trending towards a mistake. Will Levis is trending towards not viable, if he was considered viable at the start of this thing. And now you have to make legitimate decisions based on the entirety of the roster, the entirety of the locker room, as opposed to just the one player, even if that one player is the most important. Chosen says, took Levis 5 games to slide. What else is he not listening to? It's, I'm cognizant of the fact that the young quarterback. Listen, let me say this first and foremost. I don't blame Will Levis for failing. I don't blame Will Levis entirely for failings. He does deserve some fault in all of this, but I am of the opinion that organizations fail players far more often than players fail organizations. And everything that's been done around this player was supposed to serve to make him better, and it's only made him worse at this point. So that's hard for me to outright pin on Will Levis and not pin it on the rest of the people who are responsible for trying to get this thing right around him, even if Will Levis was never going to be the guy, right? They have failed him spectacularly in trying to put him in position to succeed. And he has also let them down to some extent. Again, he is not blameless in the middle of all of this. So with everything that's going on right now, AFIO on YouTube says, well, let me read this comment here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, GaryAshton.com, your dream address without the stress. Get the intel edge you need to succeed from the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators. That's the Ashton team, GaryAshton.com for more information. Let me read this comment real quick. AFIO, we kept hearing Malik didn't get a full shot and he kicked our ass. Has Will Levis had his full shot? Oh, Will Levis has had infinitely more opportunities to get this thing right than Malik Willis did. And Malik Willis landed in a viable situation. He's now on a winning football team. He's now with a coaching staff. I mean, I don't know who's going to end up being the NFL's coach of the year, but what Matt LaFleur has done in Green Bay this year certainly deserves that consideration. So I think that there is something to be said about Malik, to his credit, I think there's something to be said about Callahan and the coaching staff here, getting him ready for future opportunities to succeed. And then there's something to be said about Matt LaFleur for putting Malik Willis in positions that he could succeed at the NFL level, because he was 2-0 as a starting quarterback this year. So, yeah, Malik Levis has gotten infinitely more opportunities than Malik Willis, and the difference between them is not that great. Will Levis is a second-round pick. Malik Willis was a third-round pick. Anything outside of the first round for a quarterback, to me, is a bit of a flyer. Doesn't mean that those flyers can't pay off, and doesn't mean that it's not worth taking the chance on Malik Willis or Will Levis. But when they don't pan out, that's not a bust to me, right? That just means that they're best served as backup quarterbacks, and it's tough to find a starting caliber quarterback outside of the first round. Hell, even in the first round, it's tough to find a starting caliber quarterback, which is why I'm giving very serious consideration to not drafting a quarterback this year, and stop gapping your way through with a veteran if you think that you can put if Brian Callahan is the kind of coach that you need him to be. I do think there's something to be said about him proving before you attach him to another rookie quarterback where you're going to have to reset the ball. I mean, all these people are probably getting cleared out, to be honest with you. If this continues to trend in this direction, there is no disputing that none of these people, whether it's front office, coaching staff, or roster, are going to see the opening of the new stadium in 2027. And they may just make a change for the sake of freshness because the product sucks. And they're trying to continue to sell tickets for a product that is godforsaken at this point. I think that there are so many different ways that you can look at this at this point and say, all right, now the attention has shifted almost as much from the quarterback to the coaching staff on how they handle the rest of this situation. Because whether it's Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, or the offensive line, the decisions at right tackle, the play calling, the schematics of it, the defense, and how much Denard Wilson can continue to do with pieces and parts right now that are playing well enough in spots but aren't consistently finishing out games because the offense can't score and won't give them a chance. I think there's a lot of this stuff that you look at and say, okay, quarterback looks like it's done and dusted. Looked like the hay is in the barn on that particular position. Now the attention turns to, can the coaching staff do any of the things that they promised that they could do, which has turned this into a significantly more competitive product. I don't know. I don't know whether they're going to be able to do it or not, but I know that's what these next 11 weeks become about as much as the quarterback evaluation. Chosen says, Buck, do you think they really want to be in another Tannehill situation? Oh, no, of course they don't want to be in a Tannehill situation. If you had your way, right, you'd find a CJ Stroud and you'd ride it out and that'd be your quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years. But it doesn't work that way for very many teams. Look at the quarterbacks at the top of that draft, right? It's Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, then Richardson with the 4th overall pick. Then Levis is the 4th quarterback taken in that draft, and he falls to the top of the 2nd round. That way, one of those 4 looks viable at this point. CJ Stroud is the only one that looks viable. And even then, you can go back to the Trevor Lawrence draft. You can go to this year's draft where 6 of them were taken in the 1st round. There is no sure thing about drafting a quarterback in the 1st round. So the more that I watch NFL teams try and be competitive, and the less success I see teams have with building around the what in theory should make sense, building around the rookie quarterback contract, but then rookie quarterbacks have a ceiling and they peter out. You spend so much time trying to figure out whether they're good or not that by the time you get there, it comes time to pay them, and then you tie yourself to Trevor Lawrence for $55 million a year or Tua for $56 million a year without any real proven evidence that these players can actually get the job done. So yeah, I'm way more in favor at this point of Sam Darnolding my way through the quarterback position if Callahan is somebody, can be a Kevin O'Connell type figure, which is to find a quarterback reclamation project and turn them into a meaningfully competitive product, because the Tannehill situation was what it was, but that's also the 2nd most successful quarterback in the Titans era. So yeah, you would be lucky to get another Tannehill situation at this point. That's what I'm saying about where the quarterback position is right now. It's really, really damn hard to get these things right. So ease the degree of difficulty on yourself. Go out and find a proven enough player or an experienced enough player that you think that you can work with that more fits what you think you're going to be able to run in this situation, as opposed to resetting the board entirely. Because I just don't think teams do right by rookie quarterbacks anymore. Shedeur Sanders, if he has to start right away, is going to struggle is going to struggle mightily, especially if they have issues all over the place. I think it makes far more sense to invest in the parts and pieces around and go out and find a veteran quarterback this offseason. But we'll go through at some point this season, because it's not even going to be the offseason before we have to start talking about quarterbacks that are going to be available. We'll do a cost-benefit analysis of the draft via free agency and work our way through at this point. Let's see. Ken Caniff says, then Buck would bash us for passing up on Shedeur, and he plays well elsewhere. Well, listen, Ken, there is no guarantee that I'm going to shit on you for what you do, right? The only reason that I'm tough on you is because they're a losing organization. I had this, I don't respond to that many people on Twitter anymore, just because it's a big waste of time and Twitter arguments. Nobody ever sees the other person's perspective in the way that you want to, and it ends up turning into name calling and all these other things. So I don't really respond to Twitter that much, people on Twitter that much anymore. But I had some time on Friday, and I was going back and forth with some people because Traylon Burks got put on injured reserve, and I was rehashing the A.J. Brown trade. And I understand why that's a sore subject and why a lot of Titans fans are tired of it. But some of the feedback that I got was, well, you always say negative things. Why don't you say something positive? My perspective on that is, okay, do something positive, and we can talk about the positive things that you've done. We talked about the positive things that it looked like you did this offseason. Have those positive things panned out? No. And you're 1-5. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You're worse than you were in 2023. So it's not negativity for the sake of negativity. And I understand that sometimes you can get lost, or sometimes that can get lost in translation. It's negativity because the franchise is in poverty right now, and they have put them. This is a situation of their own making, whether it be the previous administration or the current administration, because the current administration is not faultless either. Rand Carthon drafted Will Levis, and Brian Callahan came in here under the impression that he was going to be able to fix Will Levis, and to date has only made Will Levis look worse within the scheme that they're trying to run around him, square peg, round hole type of stuff. So it's just because they suck. Like, there's no reason to try and, pat them on the head and say, okay, you'll do better next time. If you have legitimate standards for them as an NFL football franchise, if this was New York or Philadelphia, and I understand it's not, and the Titans have never won a championship, and so there are no championship standards here in Tennessee, at some point, you guys as a fan base have to hold them to a championship standard, even if they have not yet achieved that. That should be the annual discussion around your football team, whether you're in Philadelphia, Tampa, Nashville, or New Orleans. The standard should always be what gets me closest to the Super Bowl, and did the team do the things that are going to get me closer to the Super Bowl? That's where these things are at right now. Let's move on so that you guys can enjoy Monday Night Football here, because I know Bert is no longer paying attention to us and paying attention to this Ravens-Bucks game, and he has a segment yet to do. The question that I'm going to ask you next is, what do the wide receiver moves, the recent wide receiver moves, impact the Titans? How do they impact the Titans at this point, especially DeAndre Hopkins, with trying to make sure that the Titans can recoup some kind of draft capital for this situation? On Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, let me know how you all feel about it. How does the latest wide receiver signings impact the wide receiver trade market? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch is how you can interact there. I'll remind you that True Math Fitness in the Gulch makes this show possible. Your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for more information. Okay, so Marquez Valdes-Scantling gets signed by the New Orleans Saints today. That takes a piece that the Kansas City Chiefs might have been interested in off the board. You saw, I haven't seen the terms yet on MVS's deal, but he was an unrestricted free agent. After the Bills traded for Amari Cooper, the corresponding move was then to release Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who there was some thought around could go back to the Chiefs, given that he had a bad regular season for them the last year, but was huge for them, was a meaningful part of their playoff run en route to winning back-to-back Super Bowls. So you looked at that and said, okay, that might impact the ability for the Titans to move DeAndre Hopkins, because the Chiefs would be a viable landing spot there. That's where I'm looking at and saying, okay, this is a situation where Hop only has so many teams, whether it's Washington or whether it's Kansas City, Washington, the Commanders, whether it's one of those two teams. Those are really the only viable. Those are the only real ones that make sense on paper right now, as you look at, okay, who could really use a veteran wide receiver to try and make a legitimate push as we get closer and closer to the deadline. Deadline will be 2 weeks from tomorrow, by the way, which is crazy that we're still 2 weeks away from the halfway point of the season. And the Titans are already, I mean, they're not mathematically eliminated, but the season is over for them at this point. So I think looking at Rob Neal says, I want DeAndre Hopkins in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh could also benefit from DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know if they are still exploring. I know that they have been sniffing around some of the wide receiver acquisitions this year. I know they were interested in Brandon Ayuk while they were, and terrible news for Brandon Ayuk. By the way, good for him for getting paid first and foremost before the injury happened. You hate to see injuries happen no matter what, but at least he was able to cash in a meaningful way. Kevin Davis says D-Hop is worth more than a fourth or a fifth. That may be so, but that's a team is going to look at you and say, okay, well then don't trade him. Like if you won't take the fifth round pick, all right, like we're not that desperate for him. We have Patrick Mahomes. What are you going to do about it? And then DeAndre Hopkins walks at the end of the year and you recoup nothing for it. Now, is there a school of thought that Hop could resign here? Maybe. It's possible. Maybe it doesn't have to be the end of DeAndre Hopkins in Tennessee if he doesn't get moved this offseason. And there's nothing to say because he clearly enjoys the city. He's invested in the business side of Nashville as much as he is in the football side of Nashville. He's always found ways to be involved in the local community that he's in, whether it's Arizona, Houston, or now Tennessee. So, I mean, theoretically, there I guess could be some school of thought to bringing back DeAndre Hopkins at the end of the year on an expiring contract. But no team is going to look at him and say, yeah, okay, Titans, you have the leverage here. The Titans have no leverage. The Titans' leverage is please take this wide receiver for something so that we don't lose him for nothing at the end of the year. This is the difficulty about where they're at right now. Teams know that that the Titans benefit none really by keeping DeAndre Hopkins on the roster. So they can basically negotiate on their terms. If you're Kansas City, Washington, or I guess in this case, Pittsburgh, you especially with Hop, like that's a different kind of situation. Now, where Tennessee might have leverage is with players still under contract for years beyond this coming offseason, like a Jeffrey Simmons. Now, I don't know if there would be any real thought given to trading Jeff Simmons, but I don't think anybody should be off the table right now. Now, is Jeffrey Simmons going to net you a first-round pick? No, he's on a bum elbow, especially before the deadline. It would be tough to move Jeff at a discounted rate because right now teams would be only willing to offer things at a discounted rate for Jeffrey Simmons. And he's not the best defensive tackle in football. At best, he's probably fourth or fifth. This year, I need to look at the total pressure numbers, basically the cumulative body of work for defensive tackles around the league, because, I mean, he's nowhere close to Dexter Lawrence or Chris Jones this year. Aaron Donald's obviously out of the league. But, I mean, there's a school of thought to a lot of these defensive tackles. Quinnen Williams being better than Jeffrey Simmons right now. Jeff has not produced at the rate that the rest of those guys have just yet. So, at best, he's probably the fourth defensive tackle here in Tennessee. Now, he is an interesting one there because that would give the Titans some leverage, and Jeff would make a difference somewhere. I do think on a better team with a better defense. I think that is a more viable one in terms of trying to improve the draft pick. A guy like Hop on an expiring deal where they're going to have to take on some money for a rental. It's hard for me to envision them doing better than a fifth round pick for DeAndre Hopkins right now. Puka says, why do people want to trade Simmons? He is playing hurt, but he's still making plays. There are some plays being made by Jeff Simmons. But I think Puka, it's that Jeff's not super expensive. Like that contract is pretty reasonable when you look at it in retrospect. So it would be easier for a team to take on that money. But T'Vondre Sweat does make Jeff more expendable, right? And you can draft another defensive tackle that's more cost effective. I'm not saying that I'm for or against trading Jeffrey Simmons. I'm just saying that nobody should be off the table right now outside of J.C. Latham, T'Vondre Sweat. You're not going to get anybody to take the big contracts that you just signed in Ridley or Snead or otherwise. But beyond those two players, like you don't have foundational type of pieces right now on this roster outside of those guys that shouldn't be up for discussion as far as acquiring players at this point. Ching says at this point would put Mike Keith on the trade block. No, Mike has worked so hard for you guys. That honestly, it makes me sad for Mike Keith because I know Mike just wants to win. And I see him bust his ass every week getting ready for games, and he is the best local play-by-play guy that any team has. And I know it's a joke, but I don't think you guys should take Mike Keith for granted because he still brings it every Sunday, even when your football team doesn't. And I get to witness that firsthand. Anyway, so with everything going on, the D-Hop market would be impacted in a positive way by MVS signing with the New Orleans Saints because that does narrow the focus for teams who would be acquiring wide receivers, and DeAndre Hopkins becomes then the most viable wide receiver that theoretically would be available ahead of the trade deadline. All right, Bert, we'll get in case you missed it, knocked out. Ravens currently trailing 7-0 on the road against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How is morale? We will check in on Bert here in just a second, right after I remind you that Zen Sports makes the show possible. Promo code ATOZTN. You can still bet on Cardinals Chargers right now. That kickoff is coming at 8 p.m. Central Time. You can bet on all your favorite major sports in the Zen Sports app. Promo code ATOZTN. Terms and conditions do apply. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet at Zen Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. All right, Robert, what you got? You going to participate, Bert? You're just going to stare at the camera. I'm going to put him on camera, and he's done. Oh, he froze. He froze. What an upset. I don't know if that was fake malfunction or real malfunction, but I looked down and he looks like he's trying to get back in the stream. Calling Bert, it's your turn. Are you viable?
I'm viable. I'm here. For some reason, whenever I tried to pause the stream I was watching the game on, it had me lag a little bit. That's fine. We got who you got tonight. Doubleheader on Monday Night Football. The Ravens taking on the Buccaneers. Buccaneers looking good early. Baker Mayfield hitting Mike Evans from 25 yards out for his 100th touchdown of his career. They beat the 22-1 record Lamar has versus the NFC to death this week, so I assume they've jinxed it. The Ravens trail after Lamar was sacked back-to-back times on the Buccaneer side of the field to push them back. They had to punt the ball back to the Bucs. So tough sledding for the Ravens to start off. Hopefully they hold stead. I still think the Ravens win it. If you like the Ravens, you could probably get them at plus money right now because of how the game has started. But the Bucs and Baker are no slouch. I've got my pregame jitters going on. My hands are shaking. I'll probably smoke 4.5 cigarettes in the first half alone. But that's just me. How are you feeling?
Well, here's the thing. I don't know how much of the pregame coverage you watched, but Scott Van Pelt asked Joe Buck a question about like the Ravens and knowing who they are as an organization. I thought Joe Buck made a good point about they do know who they are as an organization, but they still haven't experienced the level of playoff success that they're accustomed to or looking for on a regular basis. And the point that Joe made is, well, Derrick Henry makes the difference here because they're no longer asking Lamar Jackson to be their best quarterback and running back. That gives Lamar some level of flexibility, and you see them be able to problem solve in real time because they can win in multiple ways. So I'll still take the Ravens on the road in Tampa Bay, even though I acknowledge that Tampa Bay is a good football team. That was a wide open touchdown pass from Baker to Mike Evans earlier in the game, and the Bucs are already back on offense. So we will see what becomes of this. But I would, if I was betting with your money, I'd probably still bet Ravens.
You'd have to bet the money line, though. I hate betting mid-game spreads before the half, but that's just me. Your other Monday Night Football game is the Cardinals taking on the Chargers. That's your West Coast kick. I think the Cardinals are frisky. I don't think the Cardinals are getting the respect they deserve in the NFL space. I think that they can pull this game out on a hot Chargers team that's playing 1950s football better than anyone, with Greg Roman, who had a crazy amount of success with the Ravens rushing the ball. He's doing the same thing with the Chargers with a ton of Ravens in tow. Tough game for Jim after having a medical scare last week. I still think the Chargers get it done, but I do think the Cardinals are going to be frisky and not go away.
I haven't gotten to watch a Cardinals game this year, so I don't want to speak out of turn on. And frankly, I haven't watched a Chargers game this year either. This is the struggle. Tuesday is typically my day to catch up on the NFL games that happened over the weekend because I cover one team and watch one game on Sundays usually, and maybe catch a little bit of Sunday Night Football. Not having seen this, I would probably – the Cardinals are more fun to watch just because Kyler will make plays off schedule, and and wow you, but it hasn't turned into a sustainable winning formula yet in Arizona. Maybe tonight is the night that they break through. They're at home against the Chargers. Chargers are an interesting team right now. They do play a tough physical brand of football. I just don't know that the Cardinals are going to be able to out-tough the Chargers tonight.
It's going to be, either way, a great doubleheader on Monday Night Football. I love that. I was also thinking, if we're doing the Sad Boy Radio hats, I was thinking of a good charity we could do. It's getting cold outside. Not a lot of people like dealing with the cold. I need a hot tub. So if we could raise enough money to get me a hot tub with the Sad Boy Radio merch, that would be awesome.
Well, I have often called you a charity case for reasons that are, unrelated, but we will see whether you're shameless shilling for people to buy you things that you are fully capable of buying yourself, or at least
they're high as hell. What do you mean capable of buying myself?
Or at least begging your sugar mama Cheyenne to buy for you, or your other sugar mama who you appear to think is me, even though I'm not going to be willing to buy you things that you send me on a regular basis to buy you. I would say that we'll endeavor to figure out a redneck hot tub type of situation for you, and we'll find a better charity to donate the money to.
So that's a no.
Get off my screen. Go watch your Ravens. That's going to do it for us tonight. Have a great rest of your evening. A lot of college football talk tomorrow on the radio show from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. Tennessee won, Vanderbilt won, and Indiana might be better than both of them. We are going to dive into it together. Alabama in shambles should be a lot of fun, unless you're a Bama fan. Have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy the football. I will talk to you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
Go home.